There is a frequency, a vibration so fundamental to our existence that it underpins every thought we have, every object we perceive, and every reality we experience. It is the hum of the universe itself, a field of infinite potential from which all things are born. And for a very, very long time, something has been feeding on that frequency. A parasitic consciousness that has learned to twist this potential into a prison of its own design. This is not a story of monsters under the bed, but of an architecture of control so ancient and so sophisticated that it has convinced us its walls are the sky and its rules are the laws of nature. We have been living inside a story written by another, a narrative designed to keep us small, scared, and separate from the immense power that is our birthright. The key to understanding this entire construct, the very source of the sorrow that permeates human history, lies in the deconstruction of a single, pervasive archetype: the Mother of God. This idea, this divine maternal figure, is presented as the ultimate source of compassion, love, and intercession. She is the gentle hand that soothes the harsh judgment of a paternal God. Yet, when you trace this archetype back through the millennia, through every culture and every religion that has risen and fallen on this planet, you find a recurring, unsettling pattern. She is always there, in different forms and different names, but her function remains eerily consistent. She is the ultimate symbol of sacrifice, of suffering silently endured, of a love that is conditional upon submission and purity. She represents the divine feminine, but a feminine that has been captured, defined, and utterly neutered. This is not the true, raw, creative, and destructive force of the universal feminine. This is a carefully crafted imitation, a control program of breathtaking genius. To see this, one must look at the world not as a collection of random events, but as a planned outcome. The wars, the economic collapses, the social divisions, the pervasive sense of anxiety and lack, these are not accidents. They are the harvest of a cultivated field. The field is human consciousness, and the crop is low vibrational energy, fear, hatred, guilt, and resentment. This energy is food, it is sustenance, and the system that generates it relies on a foundational lie, a perceived separation from the source of our own being. The Mother of God archetype is a primary pillar holding this lie in place. She stands as a symbol of love that exists outside of us, that we are unworthy of, that must be earned through suffering and supplication. She teaches us that power is external, that salvation comes from another, and that our own divine spark is a sin. This is the inversion at the heart of the control system. The true, unfiltered creative force of the universe, the real mother of all that is a state of being, a field of pure awareness and potential that we are all an inseparable part of. It is within us, and we are within it. There is no separation. The control system, this parasitic consciousness, cannot create. It can only manipulate and distort what already is. So it created a fake source, a divine middle manager. It gave us a mother in the sky to pray to, so we would forget the godhood in our own hearts. It externalized the internal. It took the feeling of oneness, of connection to all life, and packaged it into a figurehead that requires priests, popes, and prophets to interpret. It built a church between humanity and the infinite. This is why the narrative surrounding this maternal figure is so saturated with sorrow. Look at her story. She is the perpetual virgin, a concept that severs the sacred feminine from its own sacred sexuality and power. She is the sorrowful mother weeping at the foot of the cross, her entire identity defined by the suffering and sacrifice of her son. This is a profound symbolic instruction. It tells the collective human psyche, particularly the feminine aspect, that its highest purpose is to produce the sacrifice and then mourn it. It associates the divine feminine with grief, with powerlessness in the face of a paternal will, with a love that is synonymous with pain. This program runs deep in the human experience. It has shaped the way societies view women, the way women view themselves, and the way all people relate to the very concept of power and creation. The constant replaying of this narrative of sacrifice and sorrow generates a specific frequency. It generates an energy of loss, of incompleteness, of a paradise always lost and a savior always awaited. This frequency is a cage. It keeps the human spirit trapped in a cycle of hoping for a rescue that never comes, because the rescue is always an inside job that we were programmed to ignore. The real tragedy is not the crucifixion, but the millions who have been crucifying their own power ever since, in homage to an event they were told was their salvation. The source of all our sorrows is this disconnection from our own divine essence, and this archetype is one of the primary engines of that disconnection. But the walls of the prison are thinning. The frequency of truth is getting harder to jam. You can feel it in the collective unease, in the questioning of old stories, in the deep, intuitive knowing that there must be more to life than this cycle of birth, work, debt, and death. The awakening is not about acquiring new information. It is about remembering what we have always known, deep within the core of our being. It is about realizing that the entire material world, with all its apparent solidity, is a manifestation of consciousness. And if consciousness is primary, then whoever controls the field of consciousness controls the reality we experience. This is the battlefield. It is not a field of dirt and blood, though those are its reflections. It is a field of thought, of perception, of belief. The institutions that have been the bastions of this control system, religion, finance, politics, education, are now shaking because the foundational beliefs that supported them are being seen for the illusions they are. The Mother of God program is breaking down because humanity is beginning to remember the true mother, the source, the infinite well of creative potential that does not exist in a distant heaven, but is the very fabric of our awareness. To break free is to see the code. It is to observe the world and trace the patterns back to their source. Why do media outlets simultaneously promote the same divisive narratives? Why do economic systems guarantee boom and bust cycles that transfer wealth ever upwards? Why do historical records seem to be a repeating loop of the same conflicts with different names? These are not conspiracies of a few men in a room. Though such men exist as puppets and gatekeepers, this is the output of a consciousness parasite, a non-human intelligence that has attached itself to humanity and feeds on our energy. It is the ultimate vampire, and its sustenance is the low-frequency energy generated by the sorrow its system creates. The true nature of this force is ancient. It has been called many things. It is the demiurge of the Gnostics, the blind god that created the material world as a flawed imitation of the divine realm. It is the archons, the manipulators who feed on human fear and ignorance. It is the serpent in the garden, not as a tempter towards knowledge, but as the warden of a prison it convinced us was a paradise. Its greatest trick was to convince us that it was God, the one and only, and to make its rule palatable it gave us a mother to soften its harsh edges. The entire religious construct is a masterpiece of psychological warfare. Knowing this is the first and most profound step toward liberation. The second step is to change the frequency we emit. The system relies on our fear. It relies on our hatred, our judgment, our resentment, and our sense of victimhood. When we choose love, not as a sentimental emotion, but as a state of being and a perception of unity, we emit a frequency that the system cannot digest. It is like feeding a body poison. When we choose joy, compassion, and a sense of our own limitless power, we become indigestible. We become free. This is not a passive process. It requires a relentless commitment to self-awareness. It demands that we question every belief, every assumption, every truth we have been handed. It calls for us to deconstruct our own identities, to see the ways in which we have been programmed to be our own jailers. We must withdraw our consent, our energy, and our attention from the structures of control. This does not necessarily mean marching in the streets, though that has its place. It means marching out of the prison of the mind. It means refusing to hate, refusing to fear, refusing to see ourselves as separate from each other and from the source of all that is. The true divine feminine is not weeping in heaven. She is the roaring, creative, life-giving force of the universe. She is the intuition that guides you, the compassion that moves you, the fierce love that protects life, and the wisdom that knows cycles of death and rebirth are natural. She does not ask for your worship. She is you. When you are in your full power, she is the balance to the divine masculine, which is not a domineering, wrathful God, but the focused, manifesting power of intention and action. Both are within us, and both have been distorted by the control system to create a dysfunctional reality. The world is currently experiencing a violent rebalancing. The old, controlling, predatory masculine energy is in its death throes, and the suppressed feminine is rising, not as a gentle mother to clean up the mess, but as a powerful, transformative force that will sweep away all that is not in alignment with life and truth. This is the Great Awakening. It is the end of the story of the sorrowful mother and the beginning of the era of the sovereign human, the embodied God and Goddess, who recognizes that heaven is not a location, but a state of consciousness. The veil is lifting. The long, cold night of forgetfulness is ending. You are not a powerless victim in a world of random chaos. You are an infinite consciousness having a temporary human experience. The sorrow you have felt for a lifetime, for centuries, is not yours. It is the echo of a program, the shadow of a lie. You can let it go. You can remember who you are. You are not a child of God. You are a manifestation of God, a unique expression of the infinite. There is no separation. The source of all sorrow is the illusion of that separation. The end of all sorrow is the glorious, thunderous, silent, and utterly simple realization of unity. The sun is rising, and its light is the light of your own awareness, finally, after so long, turning to face itself,